trove of never-before-seen photos of Ghislaine Maxwell and Jeffrey Epstein have been shown at her trial in New York. They give a new insight into the relationship between the socialite and the sex offender, who prosecutors claim were partners in crime.
A warm embrace, a foot massage on a private jet, and lounging outside the Queen's Balmoral log cabin. This album of intimate snaps submitted as evidence into Ghislaine Maxwell's sex trafficking trial, hoping to prove she was not a scapegoat, but a partner in crime. The New York jury given an insight into the lavish lifestyle of the pair, played out on a backdrop only few could afford. The never-before-seen photos obtained in an FBI raid on Epstein's mansion in 2019, along with hard drives, including an advertisement she'd written for Epstein in 2001. Help wanted, are you a massage therapist? Work in Palm Beach home, excellent pay, mostly weekends. And a document created by Maxwell appearing to be written for a third person. Jeffrey and Ghislaine have been together as a couple for the last 11 years. They are, contrary to what people think, rarely apart. I almost always see them together. Former accuser Sarah Ransom, who settled out of court with the pair in 2019, alleging that Ghislaine was the mastermind of their operation.
It makes me sick to my stomach that Ghislaine is claiming to be innocent and claiming to be a victim, because she was the chief orchestrator. She was the engineer.
The prosecution is expected to wrap up its case at the end of this week.
Ghislaine Maxwell has been found guilty of aiding Jeffrey Epstein in his underage sex trafficking ring. Attention is now focusing on Maxwell's longtime friend, Prince Andrew.
Prince Andrew, the Duke of York, has caused headaches for the royal family for years, but not at this level. In 2015, Virginia Roberts accused Epstein of forcing her to have sex with Prince Andrew when she was 17 years old. Buckingham Palace has denied the whole thing, but with more documents coming out, this could turn into a royal mess.
Making lurid headlines across the world. Sleazy Wall Street tycoon Jeffrey Epstein used the Lolita Express to ferry a bevy of beautiful young women. Among the passengers, former President Bill Clinton and Britain's Prince Andrew.
On almost every trip that I did go on, there were young girls around.
In this Inside Edition exclusive, Shantae Davies takes us inside the secret world of the Lolita Express, named for the controversial book and movie about a professor's infatuation with an underage girl. Shantae made several trips on Jeffrey Epstein's infamous Lolita Express. She says she was one of several young, attractive women hired to travel around the world, giving massages or yoga instruction to Epstein and his rich and powerful friends.
Other billionaires. I was trafficked to politicians, professors, even royalty. It was the elite of the world. It was the people who run the world. It was the most powerful people in the world. This is New York. This is Palm Beach. This is California. This is Paris. This is London. This is wherever Epstein was touching down.
A former Secret Service agent is threatening to release damaging information on former President Bill Clinton. Dan Bongino says he may release information on Clinton's 26 documented trips on Jeffrey Epstein's private jet, the Lolita Express. Epstein was convicted in 2008 for soliciting sex from an underage girl and served 13 months in prison. For more on this tonight, we go to the host of America's Lawyer, Mike Papantonio. Mike, Dan Bongino, his testimony or his information coming forward could break the story wide open. What's going on here?
Well, it is. This is a story that is so underreported, Ed. In absolute secret, the U.S. government negotiated a deal that forgave multi-billionaire Jeff Epstein for procuring sex with about 40 children. Some as young as 12 years old were trafficked from other countries to other countries. The deal that allowed Epstein to serve only 13 months in a special private wing of the Palm Beach jail, where he was allowed to leave every day for 16 hours. Basically, he only slept there. It carried the possibility for everybody else who wasn't a billionaire, life in prison. Epstein's private pilot, Larry Visocki, in addition to all this, came forward and said that he had flown Bill Clinton around on the same jet at the same time with underage girls that Epstein had on his jet. In fact, Bill Clinton's name shows up on logs that have been forwarded to me 20 times. Bill Clinton's name 20 times during times when some of these girls were on board. The Epstein team also ordered private investigations by the truckload to harass, threaten, and offer money to families in exchange for non-cooperation with the investigation. So a lawyer down in South Florida, who I've worked with so many times, very, very talented trial lawyer, has brought a lawsuit demanding the case be reopened because the disgusting plea deal that was made by the government violated the Crime Victims' Rights Act when it made a plea deal with Epstein without informing anybody about what was going on with this billionaire. So now they're going to be permitted to take discovery that the feds and the state prosecutors have failed to do when they gave Epstein this cover. Epstein hired women who'd go out and actively recruit underage girls for Epstein. Epstein would bring high-profile guests to private islands, St. James Island. The case goes on, and it's amazing that there's been no discussion about Bill Clinton being on this jet 20 times with this character Epstein, going to an island. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, is Bongino, is he expected to bring damaging testimony against the former president?
Well, the evidence is already there. There's already been affidavits, sworn affidavits by the pilots who actually swore that Bill Clinton was on the same jet with Epstein, on the same jet with the women who procure underage girls for Epstein, on the same jet where there were actually some of the girls that were being transported. So this case is just, look, this is just starting. These lawyers down in South Florida handling this are very capable.
We will follow the story. Host of America's Lawyer here on RT America, Mike Papantoni.
Good.
Mike,
I understand you've stumbled across some pretty explosive news regarding celebrity lawyer Alan Dershowitz. Can you tell us about it?
Yeah, it's news that has been, that mainstream media has done a terrible job covering the story. Here are the facts. Dershowitz was a lawyer who negotiated a closed-room secret deal for predator Jeffrey Epstein. This is the character who had reams of evidence stacked up against him involving a child sex ring, slavery. Is the only way that you can say to describe it. That he participated in more than 40 children. In absolute secret, Dershowitz negotiated this deal that forgave multi-billionaire Jeff Epstein for procuring sex with about 40 children, some of them as young as 12. Some of them were trafficked from other countries. So the prosecutors and Dershowitz sit down and come up with this deal that allowed Epstein to serve 13 months in a special private wing of a Palm Beach jail where he was allowed to leave every day for up to 16 hours. Basically, he slept there and there was no real prison involved. It would have carried, for the average person, would have carried the possibility of life in prison, Tom. This is part of that double standard that we're seeing in America now. And now Dershowitz is back in this story for a lot of other reasons.
And what are those reasons?
Well, Dershowitz and England's Prince Andrew were also accused of participating in sex with children at Epstein's house. Now, Dershowitz has denied all that. Prince Andrew has denied all that. But because of the plea that Dershowitz worked out, there's even more scrutiny. There's more suspect about what that plea was all about. Because here in the plea, very unusual, it was specified that any other co-conspirators who might have been involved with these children have total immunity for the rest of forever. I mean, for any involvement that they may have had. Very unusual thing to put in there, but it was put in there for this situation. Now, that becomes important, Tom, because Epstein's private pilot, Larry Vysotsky, came forward and he said that he had flown Bill Clinton around in the jet and Israeli Prime Minister Ehud Barak around on the same jets at the same time with those same underage girls where Epstein was on the jet. So a friend of mine in South Florida it brought a lawsuit. And the lawsuit's now demanding that the case be reopened because of the disgusting plea deal that violated something that's called the Crime Victims' Rights Act. When it made a plea with Epstein, without informing the victims. The Crime Victims' Rights Act is very specific. You can't enter a plea on something this serious and without informing the victims, especially when all you do is slap this guy on the wrist who should be in prison. This is the type of thing that carries a lifetime prison sentence with it. Mainstream press has given all the players involved this incredible pass, Tom, under-reporting, under-investigating. They have Dershowitz out on the morning shows and the night shows telling his side of the story when I've had firsthand, have seen the affidavits, I've seen what's been filed in this case. It is a child predator case. And now Dershowitz is denying all of it. But in the process of denying it all, he's saying that the lawyers who brought this case are lying ambulance chasers simply trying to make a buck, which is not, it was just so far from the truth that it's obscene. Look, anybody besides a billionaire would be in prison for life for running a children's sex trafficking ring. And now these lawyers had the courage to go after these people and say, look, Epstein needs to be tried on this, and we need another shot at this because of this Crimes Act that says the victims must participate. And now what's happened is you have Matt Weissing's law firm down in South Florida that is going forward with this case. They're suing Epstein for defamation, and the reason I think that's happened is now we're going to start seeing some discovery take place, some questions asked and answered that maybe you couldn't get to before.
It's been speculated that I want to construct this question carefully. The question, you know, how did he get off? Why did he get off so easily? And not Dershowitz, but Epstein. And there has been some speculation that he had these girls have sex with so many powerful and famous people, and maybe at the time they didn't realize they were underage girls, so that later he could say to them, by the way, you just had sex with a 14-year-old, 15-year-old. Now I've got the dirt on you, so you're going to dance to my tune. Is there any? Is that is possible, or just way out of the realm of?
No, it's not out of the realm. That is what's surfacing in some of these depositions. The woman Maxwell that you've seen, who also was accused of being not only the participant in some of this stuff, but was the person who actually went after the children, brought them through the house. That's what she was accused of. When she was put on the spot, she left the country, back to the UK. Understand this. Dershowitz has been given the chance to come forward and give a deposition. Matter of fact, he said on the air when he was trying to call these lawyers in South Florida, Matt Weissing, those first, when he was trying to call them liars, he said, look, just give me the right to give a deposition. Give me the right to serve an affidavit, and I'll do that. Well, the lawyers down there said, okay, great. We would love to have you give a deposition. He's avoided it at every turn. We would love for you to do an affidavit. He's avoided that at every turn. So what we have is a one-sided story that the damn brain-dead media is allowing to take place without the rest of the story taking place, because Dershowitz is a celebrity and he can call the morning shows and say, hey, I'd like to tell my part of the story. He was, even on the O'Donnell show on MSNBC the other night, where he's talking about his side of the story, and nobody's asking the tough questions about what his involvement may have been. Now, at this point, he has said, I didn't do anything. But the truth is, there are witnesses that say he did. So to attack these lawyers in South Florida and say they're liars and ambulance chasers and just there to get money is absurd. And so this case needs to be reopened. Epstein needs to be tried for this. He's a multi-billionaire, and you know what? It's pretty disgusting when these kind of stories surface and the government says, oh yeah, well, we're going to let you go with a slap on the wrist. Anybody else would still be in prison today.
The American media may be giving him a pass. I spend about an hour every night with BBC, and I got to tell you, they've been on this every day because of Prince Andrew, because Prince Andrew was one of those people who allegedly had sex with one of these girls. And one of the things, and they've been publishing pieces from this affidavit, I'm assuming it's the one you're talking about, and one of the things that they mentioned, I think it was in the last day or two on the BBC, was that Bill Clinton was on the plane with these girls, but that the girl who had, the young woman, she's an older woman now, who had provided the affidavit, said he wasn't having sex with anybody. If Do you think that one of the reasons why Republicans haven't jumped all over this thing and amped it up to the level of a Fox News 24/7 Benghazi kind of story is because there's no evidence that Bill Clinton was having sex with anybody? He just happened to be on the plane?
Well, at this point, look, nobody has pointed fingers at Bill Clinton. They simply, some of this information is out there simply to develop a witness list. Look, if you're at his house, if you're at Epstein's house, and you see a parade of girls coming in and out, constantly, and somebody says something's not up, well, you ought to be able to ask questions about that. You ought to be able to explore that further. Here, the Epstein team ordered private investigators by the truckload to harass and to threaten, offer money to families in exchange for non-cooperation with the investigation. I think where we are here, it's my opinion, Dershowitz has moved into some dangerous territory with his efforts to attack and discredit this law firm down in South Florida. These are real lawyers, Tom. These guys, I don't care who Dershowitz is. Dershowitz can line up in a courtroom the same way anybody else can. And right now, he is in their crosshairs because they have been put in a corner. And so I think this is going to continue to heat up. This is Bill Cosby's story on steroids.
Yeah. 30 seconds, Pap, left. Is this beyond the statute of limitations? Are these guys beyond the reach of the law?
No, they're not. There are all types of ways to look, if you open this case and you show that there was some fraud involved in how all this took place, that's going to be a serious problem for everybody.
Yeah.
Footage from the July 23rd incident of Epstein being found unconscious was claimed in January 2020 to be permanently deleted due to a clerical error. Epstein was reportedly depositing funds into prisoners' accounts to gain favors and buy protection. Epstein's left and right thyroid cartilage was fractured, and his hyoid bone was broken, which is said to be more indicative of strangulation than suicide. The blood on Epstein's neck was absent on the bed sheets. The front and back lesions on his neck are more evident of a wire/cord from his CPAP machine than a strip of bedsheet. Guards say they cut him down, but from what? The top bunk? Could someone actually hang themselves this way? The two guards are Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, who need to tell us the exact body position when they first encountered him. The noose looks like it's still hemmed. What tool did they use to cut the noose? They took his body out of the cell against protocol. It was a crime scene. If this wasn't a suicide, who, how, and why did someone sneak in for this homicide? What time did Epstein's camera start malfunctioning? Even if the cameras malfunctioned in front of his cell, how about other footage from inside the cell block area to see if anyone else potentially entered? It is said he was buried on September 5, 2019 in Palm Beach next to his parents in an unmarked grave to prevent vandalism. I'm curious which medications exist that can send him into a coma for a month and then for him to be dug out of his grave and resuscitated. How did Tova Noel and Michael Thomas, who failed to do their 30-minute checks on Epstein, each finance their $100,000 bail? I'd place mandatory lifelong financial oversights on their accounts and Warden Lamin Ndiaye, medical examiner Barbara Sampson, and their families to make sure they don't get heavily compensated in the next decades for this. They must all be extensively investigated. We know one thing for sure. A lot of powerful people are trying to get out of this situation without punishment.
ABC News reporter Amy Robach lamenting on a hot mic that ABC News killed a story she had developed of alleged Jeffrey Epstein victim Virginia Roberts on tape years ago, leveling accusations not only against the now dead financier, but implicating a member of the British royal family, Prince Andrew. She also had detailed reporting on connections between Epstein and former President Bill Clinton. Let's take a listen to the whole thing.
I've had the story for 3 years. I've had this interview with Virginia Roberts. We would not put it on the air. First of all, I was told, who's Jeffrey Epstein? No one knows who that is. This is a stupid story. Then the palace found out that we had her whole allegations about Prince Andrew and threatened us a million different ways. We were so afraid we wouldn't be able to interview Kate and Will that also quashed the story. And then Alan Dershowitz was also implicated in it because of the planes. She told me everything. She had pictures. She had everything. She was in hiding for 12 years. We convinced her to come out. We convinced her to talk to us. It was unbelievable what we had. Clinton. We had everything. I tried for 3 years to get it on, to no avail, and now it's all coming out, and it's like these new revelations, and I freaking had all of it. I'm so pissed right now. Like, every day I get more and more pissed because I'm just like, oh my God, it was what we had was unreal. Other women backing it up. Hey, yep. Brad Edwards, the attorney, 3 years ago, saying there will come a day when we will realize Jeffrey Epstein was the most prolific pedophile this country has ever known. And I had it all 3 years ago.
Robach's horrifying story. It contains all the same ingredients of NBC News' alleged cover-up of Harvey Weinstein, detailed by the enterprising journalist Ronan Farrow. The British royal family began exerting immense pressure on ABC News, who was desperate at the time to score an interview with Will and Kate. In other words, ABC News bosses killed a story about a sexual predator to preserve their relationship with the powerful. A side note, back in August, NPR also reported on ABC News quashing that story. But the ABC thing is the type of behind-the-scenes revelations that we all know happens daily. It is rarely captured so vividly on the screen. ABC is of course denying the story in some language you may find very familiar. First, they released a hostage statement from Robach, who was allegedly caught in a moment of private frustration, and that she could not obtain sufficient corroborating evidence to meet editorial standards. She also says nobody at ABC ever told her to stop investigating Epstein. ABC released their own statement side by side, saying Robach's reporting did not meet their standards to air and that they never stopped investigating the story. This is, of course, complete BS. Robach lays it out in the video. Her bosses told her, quote, nobody knows who this guy is in relation to Epstein. You don't think that's basically in order to stand down? ABC's explanation is literally exactly the same as NBC's pathetic excuse for not airing its Harvey Weinstein reporting, that the reporting did not meet the standards for air. And let me tell you what is newsworthy alone. It's this photo. That is a photo of a member of the British royal family with his arms wrapped around a 17-year-old girl at the residence of a known sexual predator. Do you have any more questions? Every single one of us knows why ABC News did not run this story and why NBC News killed this story into Harvey Weinstein. They wanted to preserve their relationship with the powerful. If they ran it, how else would things like this happen? Former Bill Clinton staffer and ABC star George Stephanopoulos once had dinner with Prince Andrew at Jeffrey Epstein's New York mansion in 2010 to discuss, well, of course, the upcoming wedding of Kate Middleton and Prince William. This is 2 years after Epstein was given his sweetheart deal by Florida prosecutors, but he was still required to register as a sex offender. What is the chief anchor for ABC News, the host of CBS Evening News Katie Couric, CBS's Charlie Rose, Woody Allen, and Chelsea Handler all doing there too? I think we all know the answer to that. They were cozying up to power, solidifying the base that Epstein had used and would continue to use for years in order to cover up his horrific crimes. This story is important for many reasons. Not only does it demonstrate beyond a shadow of a doubt that our corporate media giants not only defend the powerful when it comes to the things that may hurt their collective bottom lines, but they will stop at nothing even to cover up a whole host of crimes. The important thing to remember is what the media outlets like ABC News and NBC News choose to cover when they're quashing stories into Jeffrey Epstein or Harvey Weinstein. Story selection is the most pernicious form of media bias. What they choose not to show you is more important than what they do choose to show you.
BNN.